Today we will explain end of theme 13, that is the last heroic days. This refers to Gandhiji's life of Gandhi. And now you turn your book to page 365. Mahatma Gandhi was not present at the festivities in the capital on 15 August 1947. He was in Calcutta, but he did not attend any functions or hoist any flags there, and instead Gandhiji marked the day with a 24 hours fast, and because the freedom he had struggled so long for had come at an unacceptable price, with the nations being divided and the Hindus and the Muslims at each other's throat. So, through this September and October, Gandhiji went around these hospitals and refugee camps giving consultations to the distressed people. And he appealed to the Sikhs and the Hindus and the Muslims to forget the past and not to dwell on their suffering, but to extend their right hand of fellowship to each other and to determine to live in peace. So, after the initiatives of this Gandhiji and Nehru, the Congress passed their resolutions on the rights of these minorities, and the party had never accepted the two-nation theory, forced against its will to accept these partitions. It still believed that India is a land of many religions and many races and must remain so. So, whatever the situations in Pakistan may be, India would be a democratic, secular state, and many scholars have written of the months after this independence as being Gandhiji's finest hour. So, after working to bring peace to Bengal, Gandhiji now shifted to Delhi, and from here he hoped to move on to the riots, that is the torn districts of this Punjab. And while in the capital, his meeting were disrupted by these refugees who objected to reading from the Quran, or shouted the slogan asking why he did not speak of the suffering of those Hindus and the Sikhs still living in Pakistan. Hmm. In fact, as D.G. Tendulkar writes, Gandhiji was equally concerned with the sufferings of this minority community in Pakistan. And now let's see the life end of Gandhi's life. There was an attempt of Gandhiji's life on 20th January 1948, but he carried on undaunted. And on January 26, he spoke at his prayer meeting of how that day had been celebrated in the past as Independence Day. So Gandhiji had fought a lifelong battle for a free and united India, and yet when the country was divided, he urged that the two parts must respect and befriend one another. And next, let's see assassinations of Gandhiji. At his daily prayer meeting on the evening of this 30th January, he was shot dead by a young man, and the assassin surrendered afterwards. He was a Brahmin from this Pune by the name Nathuram Godse, and he was the editor of an extremist Hindu newspaper who had denounced Gandhiji as an appeaser of these Muslims. And next, let's see response to death of Gandhi. Gandhiji's death led to an extraordinary outpouring of griefs, with rich tributes being paid to him from across this political spectrum in India, and moving appreciations coming from such international figures like as this George Orwell and Albert Einstein. And next, let's see response of Time magazine to Gandhi's death. The magazine had once mocked Gandhiji's physical size, and seemingly non-rational ideas. And this Time magazine now compare his martyrdom to that of this Abraham Lincoln. It was a bigoted American who had killed Lincoln for believing that human beings were equal regardless of their race or skin colors. And it was a bigoted Hindu who had killed Gandhiji for believing that this friendship was possible. Indeed, necessarily between Indians of different faiths. So, in this respect, as time wrote, the world knew that it had, in a sense, too deep, too simple for the world to understand, convinced at his means Gandhiji's death, as it had convinced at Lincoln's. And next, let's see, knowing Gandhi sources. We know or knew Gandhi from public voices, speeches, private scripts like letters, from autobiographies, government records or police reports, and from the newspaper reports. Let's see public voices and private scripts. One important source is the writing and speeches of this Mahatma Gandhi and his contemporaries, and speech allow us to hear the public voice of an individual, and these private letters give us a glimpse of his or her or his private thoughts. In letters we see people expressing their angers and pains, isn't it, their dismays and anxieties and their hopes and their frustrations. So Mahatma Gandhi regularly published in his journal Harijan letters that others wrote to him. Nehru edited a collections of these letters written to him during the national movements and published a bunch of old letters. Okay, and next is framing a pictures, autobiographies. Autobiographies similarly gave us an account of the past that is often rich in human details. So we need to remember that they are retrospective accounts written very often from these memories, okay, and tell us what the author could recollect and what he or she saw as important, or what was keen on recounting, or how a person wanted his or her life to be viewed by others. So, in reading these accounts, we have to try and see what the author does not tell us. We need to understand the reason for that silence, those willful or these unwriting acts of forgetting. Okay, and next we go to this through police eyes or government records. The letters and reports written by policemen and other officials now can be accessed in archives. And the fortnightly reports were prepared by the Home Department from the early 20th century. And these reports were based on these police informations from the localities, but were often expressed what the higher officials saw or wanted to believe. And next, from newspapers. One important source is newspapers published in English as well as in the different Indian languages. And this newspaper accounted may be prejudiced, and the accounts that were published in London newspaper would be different from that from the reports in an Indian nationalist papers, isn't it? Every statement made in this cannot be accepted literally as representing what was happening on that ground. So they often reflects the fears and anxieties of these officials who were unable to control a movement. Okay, Juan, eh, I want you to see your timeline, page 374. Timeline ka, voi ni voi thum velin lo chiar chua ka nga a det ka in lo shevek in lo bai hat vek don nia. Oh, and in homework hi hemi chapter ami question number textual question 5 6 7 8 9 hi in lo by halfek donia. Oh, thank you all.